At 1:23 in the morning, a 26-year-old engineer named Pavel watched a needle move the wrong way. 40 seconds later, the roof of Reactor 4 was in the sky. The plan that night was a safety test, genuinely. They wanted to know whether a dying turbine could still power the cooling pumps during a blackout. The test had failed 3 times before. It should have run in daylight. With the day shift, a grid controller in Kiev asked them to hold. The test slid 10 hours late into the hands of a night shift that had not trained for it. To run it, they had to take the reactor low. Too low. Power fell to a fraction of the target, and the core began to poison itself with xenon, a gas that smothers a reaction from the inside. The rulebook said stabilize or shut down. Instead, the rods came out, far more than were ever meant to be withdrawn, until the reactor was balanced on almost nothing. Pavel watched a colleague pull rod after rod. The reactor climbed back to a low, unsteady power. It was, by every rule that existed, no longer in a safe condition. It was also technically still running. At 1:23:04, they started the test. The turbine was cut from steam and began to freewheel. The pumps it fed started to slow. Less water, moving slower through a core with nothing holding it down. In this reactor design, steam bubbles did not calm the reaction. They accelerated it. More heat made more steam made more heat. The loop had no natural break. Power began to rise. Not alarmingly at first. Then the readings stopped making sense, climbing faster than the instruments were built to follow. At 1:23:40, someone pressed AZ5, the emergency shutdown, every control rod all at once driven into the core, the button that ends everything safely. And that is the moment it exploded. Not despite the shutdown. Because of it. The rods were tipped with graphite. Graphite speeds a reaction up for a few seconds as they entered. The emergency shutdown made the bottom of the core more reactive, not less. Power multiplied. Fuel shattered. Steam pressure lifted a biological shield weighing 2,000 tons and threw it aside like a coin. The second blast tore the building open. Graphite burning at over 2,000 degrees landed on rooftops across the site. Reactor 4 was now an open furnace pointed at the sky. Pavel was thrown against a wall in a room with no windows. The lights failed. Dust came down from a ceiling that had been solid a second earlier. Nobody in that room yet believed the core was gone. Here is what the story usually gets wrong. This was not simply one shift making one reckless mistake. The flaw that killed them was in the design. It was documented and had been classified since 1975. The operators were never told that their emergency shutdown could, under exactly these conditions, trigger the thing it was meant to prevent. They pressed the right button. It was the wrong button to have. 28 firefighters reached the site within minutes. They were told there was a roof fire. Nobody told them the roof was scattered with reactor core. They fought it for hours in canvas and rubber. Several later said the air tasted of metal. That taste was ionization. Of that first group, many would not survive the sun. At dawn, the nearby city of Pripyat woke normally. 50,000 people. Children went to school. Washing went on the lines. The plume had already crossed the town twice. When the buses came, residents were told it was temporary. 3 days, take papers and a little food. Not one of them ever came home. What stopped it getting worse was not machinery. It was people. 3 plant workers waded through flooded basements in the dark to open valves and drain water sitting beneath the burning core. They are often described as suicide divers. They were not. All 3 survived that night, and 2 were still alive decades later. The truth is quieter and better. They went, they did it, they came back. Then came the miners. Coal miners from Tula digging a tunnel under a burning reactor in heat that made them work almost naked to install a cooling slab that in the end was never needed. Helicopters flew over the open core, dropping sand, clay, lead, and boron. Hundreds of sorties, straight above the most radioactive place on the planet, aiming by eye. Over the following years, 600,000 people were sent in as liquidators. Many were young conscripts. Some cleared the roof by hand, in shifts measured in seconds, because the robots kept dying in the radiation. They buried the reactor in a concrete shell built in 206 days by people who could not stay long enough to finish anything. It was only ever meant to last 30 years. In 2016, they slid a new arch over the whole thing, 36,000 tons, built at a safe distance and pushed into place, the largest object ever moved by humans on land, good for a century. The zone is quiet now, and full of animals. If this held you, subscribe to learn everything today. Tomorrow we chase the oldest light in the universe and find the edge of what can